Bay and 7 Mile open late. Burger King, your community, your burger, your way.
The Buzz is proudly sponsored by Cayman Insurance Center, specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services. And Kirk Market, experience a world of choice. And Automotive Art Cayman, your car, our passion.
And now, Radio Cayman presents The Buzz, an insightful and fresh take on a variety of issues that impact the local environment. This is where we address the topics that matter. Here's your host, Kathy Miller.
Good morning, Cayman. Happy Tuesday, August 26th. I hope everybody's having a great start to their day so far. The roads are somewhat a little quiet. Some of the kiddos started school this week. Some start later this week. If it was me, I'd be starting next week. That's what I would be doing. But, I don't have any children, and that's probably why. I'd be breaking all those parenting rules. This morning on The Buzz, I'm happy to welcome from the Department of Labor and Pensions, we have Miss Amy Wolliston. She's the Deputy Director of Pensions. We have Miss Sacha, Rankine, the Senior Inspector, and Madennys, Fernandez-Rosales, Senior Inspector as well at Labor and Pensions. So, good morning, ladies. How are you all doing today?
Good morning. Good morning. We're well, thank you.
Excellent. I know we're going to be talking about, those serious kind of labor rights that matter to everybody. The Department of Labor and Pensions affects pretty much everybody in the Cayman Islands. It's a service to everybody living here and working here. So we're going to get pretty much right into the news that you have to share. We're going to start there. If there's any news, anything new that's happening. I know about a year ago when I had you on, I think Sacha was a year ago. It was great conversations we had. There were some new features that you were rolling out then, so which was like the wage calculators,
right?
Vacation calculators and whatnot. So
yes. And before we get started on those points, I just want to make a comment about by way of background, because one thing you said actually is a misunderstanding that we get a lot of questions about. So the Department of Labor and Pensions is the regulator under the Labor Act and the Pensions Act, but only for the private sector. We don't have any involvement with the government sector.
Gotcha.
Right. So if you have a query about your government pension, that would be directed to the Public Service Pensions Board. And then if you have an HR query for a government employee, that would be either your ministry HR or the portfolio of the civil service. So I just make that point because I heard you say something.
To everybody.
And exactly.
That's what I said.
And then
yes.
it's quite we get questions quite often about the public service, which is not our remit at all.
Gotcha.
So I wanted to make that point before we get started.
It's a very good clarification to make.
Thank you.
So I made the mistake by saying everybody, but it's really just people who are working in the private sector.
That's correct.
Okay. Very good. Correct. Very important clarification.
Very much so. Very much so. I don't want any civil servants to call thinking that we can help them.
Right, because you'll get me right after the show. So I have some questions here. All right. Okay. Sacha, the news.
So we do have, I know, like you said, the last time we came, we had the calculators. They're up, they're functioning, and our website, which is also have been upgraded. We encourage people to use our website because all of those calculators are there. The wage calculation, the minimum wage calculation, the maternity calculation, and the vacation, which everybody calls every day wanting to know how much vacation they're entitled to. It's easy. Just go on our website and you'll find under the calculators, everything is listed there. So we are happy to say these things are readily available for use to the general public. Currently, we are also working from the gratuity perspective on 2 different databases. So one is for business registration, which every registered entity in Cayman should be registered with the Department of Labor and Pensions. We're now working to get that process online to make it a lot easier. Again, we are trying to get away from the paper. So we're into sustainability. I am the sustainability champion, so I will be pushing a lot of these initiatives. So this is something that is almost completed. We're working with CSD. And the gratuity registration portal as well is almost completed. So we're hoping to have these 2. The business registration should be finished by the end of September, and I'm putting CSD on the spot. And then the gratuity registration should be by the end of the year.
Okay, what's the gratuity registration?
So the gratuity registration is for an entity in like the restaurants, the hotels, the condos to register to collect gratuity. So there's a registration process, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Okay, gotcha. I did go on the website just the other day, actually, because, in anticipation that you guys were going to come on the show.
Of course.
And I said, let me check out some of those calculators.
Yes.
So maternity wasn't necessarily for me. So I didn't have to go check there. Wage calculator didn't have to do that, but vacation I did.
Yes.
And I was almost like in disbelief by how fast it told me just over 3 weeks is what I'm entitled to for vacation. And I was just so confused. I was like, hold on, that just happened really, really fast. Literally less than 5 seconds.
Yes.
I just had to put from the year I was working at that establishment, and which is here.
Yes.
And then I think it was how many weeks into the year it was, or months, one of those two. And boom, it just right away calculated my vacation. That was so fast. So I think you have some great tools there.
It is. And the one thing that we want to point out is that the information you put in, that's the information is going to be provided back to you. So if you put in inaccurate information, then the information will not be correct because the system is only giving you what you put in. So if I remember what my teacher used to say, if it's garbage in, then it's garbage out. But if you put in the correct information, then you will get accurate information because that's what the system is there for, to give you accurate information based on the information you have on hand. Right. So if you don't do it, if you don't know it, don't guess it, and then you're going to cause yourself grief because then you're getting inaccurate information.
I'm a little worried for people who don't know the year that they might have started at the job that they're at.
Exactly.
I hope that's not a common thing.
But that's why it's so important to keep records.
Yes.
Your own records.
Your own records.
Well.
Right, yeah. Are you finding that people aren't doing that?
Well, I was going to talk about this later, but, one of the obligations that an employer has is to actually keep records on their employees. For example, from the National Pensions Act, what you're required to do is obviously all the names of your employees, all their eligible employees, their compensation, how much they were paid, a copy of their employment agreement, or their statement of wages, I think it's called. And then, they're also required to keep records, all of these records on each employee. And quite often, sometimes employers don't have them. But it's also important for an employee to have their own records when you're coming to the office for assistance. And one of the first things we ask you is for a copy of your contract. So sometimes they don't have one, which they should have one.
Absolutely. Especially in the private sector, because you usually have to go to immigration and deal with
yes.
passport stamp, all the rest there. So you should have a copy of your contract. And why wouldn't you want that?
I don't know. You also get, as a member, you also get a pension statement twice a year. You should keep that as well.
Yes.
All of that information is valuable for you, but it's also valuable for the employer. So on both sides, that's important.
Okay, excellent. I did see that there was a calculator. I think we're still waiting to get there. I think it was the pensions contribution, was it?
Yes.
What's the status on that calculator?
That continues to be a work in progress. We are under the National Pensions Act. If an employer is delinquent in paying pension contributions, he's required to pay interest. So we've been working on that with computer services. We're actually going to outsource the contract very shortly because it is a rather complex calculation. So we hope to bring that to our website soon.
Understand. And you want to get that right.
Absolutely. Very much so. It is a very detailed formula.
Yes.
So we want to make sure we're completely accurate before we put anything out in the public domain.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's get into the meat of our discussion now. So we're going to be talking about some general things with the labor and pensions. So the most common misconceptions that employees have about their rights under the Labor Act.
Ladies?
One of the things that I find is that they believe that we are their legal representatives. And we always express to them that we don't represent either party. We're here to enforce the Labor Act. We're here to provide guidance based on what the Labor Act states. So when they call and if they have a grief, they would say, well, you need to get to my employer. You need to get my employer to do. No, you give me the information. We determine if there's a breach. If there's a breach, then we can work with both parties. We'll mediate. That's our main goal in the labor unit, and try to resolve that matter. Now, when it comes to their rights under the Labor Act, they, like Ms. Amy said, majority of the time they don't have a contract, so they're going based on what they think. So it's more difficult for us as labor officers when they come in and it's like, well, I believe I'm getting $8 an hour. Well, that doesn't really help, because if you're telling me your owed wages, we kind of need to start from the basics as to, well, what is your hourly rate if you're getting paid by the hour? Because you have to work it out. So that is one of the main things that we've seen happening as it relates to their rights under the Labor Act. And sometimes you would have some of the employees, which we're here to educate everyone, and Caymanians and expats alike, because the Labor Act does not differentiate for Caymanians compared to the expat. But we do have some occasions where expat will come in and say, well, the Labor Act isn't for me. There's nothing in the Labor Act that tells me it's not. As long as you're working in the private sector, our job is to provide assistance based on what the Labor Act says and the Pension Act.
From your experience with people coming in and saying the Labor Act isn't for me, what is sparking that comment from them? Where is that coming from?
I think it's based on misperception that they get from the general public, who again don't understand what our job is. So you would have even employers will say, oh, well, the Labor Act isn't there for me. Yeah, you're covered. You have your rights. You have basically, it outlines what you as an employer can do if you have issues with your employees. You have the warning, and it's the same thing for the employee. You have rights. You have to get a statement of working condition. You have overtime. You have public holiday. So it is for every person, employer and employee, Caymanian and expat, that work in the private sector. So they do have, sometimes you may have someone that may not have been as successful as they would have liked. But again, be minded that we could only enforce what the Labor Act allows us to do. So that person will probably go and say, oh, well, the Labor Board isn't going to help you, because that's how they refer to us, as the Labor Board. But it's not that we're not going to help you. We will help you as much as the legislation give us authority to do.
Another common misconception that we see, especially on our side, which is the inspection side, is the misunderstanding of how overtime is paid as an employee, how public holiday is paid. So that happens quite often, where the employee simply does not understand how to calculate their payment, especially for overtime and public holiday as well.
Can you break that down for us?
So for overtime, it's paid at 1.5 their hourly rate for any hour worked in excess of the standard work week or the standard work day.
Okay.
Public holiday, if the employee worked on the public holiday, then they are entitled to double pay on that specific day.
Okay, now,
if I could add?
Yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, from a pensions perspective, as the Deputy Director of Pensions, I would add one of the largest misconceptions I think people have is around eligibility, when you actually become eligible for pension. Yeah. So Caymanians and permanent residents are eligible immediately, the day they start working, regardless of any probationary period. And people who, let's say, have a work permit, or I should say non-Caymanians, let's put it that way, they become eligible after 9 months of employment on the island. Now, that's not 9 months of employment with that specific employer. It's 9 months of employment on the island. So once the 9 months has passed, then if they should move employers, they become eligible with the next employer immediately.
Gotcha.
So it's important for when an employer is hiring a person, they need to check what is their status on the island. Are they considered a Caymanian? Are they considered a permanent resident? Or are they considered a work permit holder, or maybe someone with rights to work or something? And that then clarifies when they become pensionable. So that's really important.
Okay, gotcha. So on that 9-month mark for non-Caymanians, when they have to start paying their pension.
Yes.
So does it have to be 9 consecutive months? Like, what happens if they're working with one employer 3 months, even though it shouldn't be? There's instances where it could be a month or 2 gap. And they don't have employment then, and then they might start again a couple months later.
It's 9 months of continuous employment.
Okay,
but it's
important.
Small breaks aren't considered in the calculation. So that's important for people to realize, because quite often an employer who may find themselves not compliant with the legislation is because they didn't understand that, well, that person is actually pensionable when the day they started, because they've already completed the 9 months with another employer.
Gotcha.
So it's important for employers to understand that. But as an employee, it's also important for you to know when you are eligible So then okay, I should be seeing some paperwork to enroll. I should, there's no deductions from my pay, things like that. So all of those things are important.
Which is why it's very important to have a copy of your contract and
yes, and your payroll slips as well.
Yes, and know from the dates you started and whatnot.
Yes, exactly. All of that goes together.
We have to go to a commercial break right now. When we come back, we will continue the discussion with the Department of Labor and Pensions.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. The Cayman Islands, He hath founded it upon the seas.
Spurgeon Andrew Ebanks, OBE, JP, 1914 through 1994. Spurgeon Ebanks served as headmaster in the government schools in North Side, Spot Bay in Cayman Brac, and West Bay from 1935 to 1946. He went to sea for a period of 6 years, returning home to manage his business in West Bay. He served as the sub-collector of taxes and customs for West Bay. He was a member of the Legislative Assembly, serving his district for 3 terms, in 1957 through 1959, 1963 through 1965, and in 1966 through 1968. He was the first Deputy President of the LA and chaired the Cayman Islands branch of the Parliamentary Association. He served on various boards, committees, and tribunals. He was appointed Justice of the Peace in 1961 and received his OBE in 1978. He was a member, elder, and treasurer of the West Bay, now John Gray Memorial Presbyterian Church. Mr. Ebanks was married twice, to Ina Nee Ebanks for 48 years and to Iola Nee Bodden for the last 8 years of his life. He had 4 daughters. He was a kind and considerate man, always willing to help those less fortunate than himself.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman's Historical Vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Looking for fresh, healthy food that's full of flavor? Then you've got to visit Kirk Market. Our dishes are made with fresh, high-quality ingredients. Enjoy vibrant mixed greens or satisfying pasta salads. Or try one of our delicious grill options like blackened chicken, spicy beef steak, or grilled salmon. Looking for something light and flavorful? We've got sushi rolls and poke bowls prepared daily. And don't forget to explore a hot bar or Billy Fresh salad at the salad bar. Stop by Kirk Market today for breakfast, lunch, or dinner and taste the difference. Eat well, live well with Kirk Market.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Good morning. Welcome back to The Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller. We are talking with the Department of Labor and Pensions. And in studio with me this morning, I have Amy Wolliston. She's the Deputy Director of Pensions. Sacha Rankine. She's a Senior Inspector of Labor and Pensions. And Madennys Fernandez-Rosales, Senior Inspector of Labor and Pensions. I think I love saying your entire name. It just rolls off my tongue in a sing-song kind of a way. I love it. So we were getting to some general points about labor and pensions, and I know that when you were first giving some of the common misconceptions that people have, Sacha, you'd mentioned about the mediation process. Yeah. So when you realize, okay, maybe something did go wrong here, somebody's at fault, you try to resolve what the matter is and have a mediation process. So can you walk us through the steps of how this mediation process occurs?
Okay, so initially what happens is that employee usually walks in and say, well, I haven't received my wages for the last, believe it or not, sometimes a year or 6 months. We will ask them for the evidential material to support their claim because, again, we don't take sides. We work based on documented evidence. When they provide us with the evidence, they do their breakdown, providing us with the total owed. We then communicate with the employer because we now have the employee side, but then we need to get the employer's side as well if we're going to mediate the matter at all. When we contact the employer, we're providing them with the information we receive from the employee. Now, we will go through the calculations to make sure that they are calculated correctly. But as it relates to the hours work, we can only go based on the documents we have, and that's where the employer come in. They will determine whether the information provided is accurate, which based on their records that they are required under the Labor Act to keep. So under the Labor Act, they're required to keep records for 2 years when it comes to general employee employment. When it comes to gratuities, they're required to keep those records for 3 years. When it comes to pensions,
5.
They're required to keep it for 5 years. So we always tell employers to be safe, keep it for 5 years. Because either way, we're going to ask for the 5-year period. So we get that information, and if the employer agrees and supports the fact that, yes, what the information the employee provided is accurate, I do owe them wages, we then go into a process where we're saying, okay, how do we now get that employee paid within a reasonable time? Because it's a written offense. That employee should not go more than their pay periods without being paid. And when they say that, is that if their contract states that they should be paid every 2 weeks, then it is expected that they're paid every 2 weeks. They do have some employers with the perception that the law says that they have a 30-day grace period. That's not what the law says. The law says an employee should not go more.
Wait, what do you mean a 30-day grace period? To pay the employee?
Right.
That's wild.
Exactly. But again, it's just a misunderstanding of what the Act says. The Act says that an employee should not go more than 30 days without being paid. So you can't pay an employee every 3 months. You understand?
Yes.
So when they read it, they're thinking, okay, well, you got to get paid today. I don't have the money to pay you, but I got 30 days based on what the Act says. No, it's just that you should not go more in excess of 30 days of paying an employee. So every month is fine, every week is fine, every 2 weeks is fine, but not beyond that month period. So once we get the employer to agree, we normally get the employer to provide us with their proposal, especially if it's a substantial amount, as to how they plan to pay off this employee. Now, we don't take it and say, okay, we accept it. We then provide that back to the employee. The employee determines whether or not that proposal is sufficient for them. And that is our way of mediating and getting both parties together. So now they've come to a resolution that, yes, the funds is owed, it's going to be paid, this is how it's going to be paid. On the flip side, if the employer says that it's not owed and they're not paying it, they don't care what DLP says.
They do not agree with what you've presented
right.
them.
If they're saying that they don't owe that employee, again, we ask them to provide us with their documented evidence to confirm, well, if the wages were paid, you should have documented evidence to show that this was paid. It could be the pay statement, which you're required to give an employee a pay statement, supported by the online transfer. So if you have that documented evidence, we go back to the employee and say, we think there's a misunderstanding. This is what the employer gave us, and we, again, try to mediate. If the employer do not have any information and they're still of the opinion that the employee is not owed, we then seek, through our immediate supervisor and the director, guidance from DPP as to whether or not it is in the public's best interest for this matter to be taken to the summer court for resolution. So we start with the mediation. If that fails, then we have no other option but to go to DPP for guidance.
How long can this process take if an employer does not agree with the evidence provided to them in the sense of they allegedly owe an employee wages and they say, we don't agree to this, we don't want to do any mediation, and then you have to approach the DPP, the Department of Public Prosecution for everybody out there, to say, hey, should we take this to court? How long could that process be before it might have to go to court?
Well, we have a limitation. So the statute of limitation on our matters is 6 months. So we try to mediate within the first 3 months to get an understanding as to whether or not we are going to be able to mediate. If we're getting pushback from the employer who makes it clear that they're not willing, then we do the preparation to ensure that we work within our statute of limitation.
Okay, and if that... This is a little complicated here. So if that statute of limitation expires, so for example, you bring the evidence to the employer and the employer says, no, I'm not interested in this, I don't believe it. Is it within that kind of 6 month period there, or is it 6 months from that point that you have to go to the DPP?
From the date that we have been aware that there's a possible offense, from the day that person walks in the door, our time starts.
So who
That's
does
for
it?
labor. Mm-hmm. Pension has a different
right.
On the labor, I'm on the labor side right now.
Right.
So if employer doesn't do anything and drags our feet and just says, hey, well, I kind of know there's a 6 month window here, I don't have to respond to anything here, or bother paying them or bother paying attention to this, the matter, is it just dropped then?
No. If we don't get any information from the employer, we proceed and we actually do a summary advising of our attempt to mediate the matter. Okay. So because we don't take sides, we're not going to say that the employer is guilty because they're not providing the information. We just go to DPP for them to tell us what is our next step. Sometimes it is, yes, take it to summer court, or no, it's not in the public's best interest. But I'm happy to say we don't make that decision.
That's the DPP.
Yes.
So then how is the employee who originally made the complaint, how are they informed? Do you keep them informed, or is that all of a sudden turned over the DPP?
While it's under investigation by the Labor Department, we do keep them informed of the different steps in our efforts. So if I communicate with the employer, I will then contact the employee and say, hey, I've spoken to your employer, this is what's happening. So at all times, that complainant should be kept updated and they're aware of what is happening with their matter. Now, some employees, again, they would believe that because they come in today, we should be able to resolve it within a day or two. It's not so simple sometimes. And especially, we have some employees that come in that are, say, going on rollover. And they would say, well, I'm leaving the island tomorrow. I get that, but we do have, we have steps that we have to follow. We have the law that is our guide as to what we have to do. So it's not going to be simple to get this matter resolved. Now, we do have some amazing employers out there that they will work with you and they'll resolve it. Again, it's because they may not have known what was required of them. And when we find those, we then encourage them to attend our training session, which we will talk about later. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, they be excited and they come and they send sometimes the entire organization, the entire HR. So we do see employers who are trying to become and remain compliant with the Labor Act just because one person came in and they don't like the fact that they're not in compliance with any law. So they are also trying their best, which is why we mediate. We're educating at the same time.
Right.
So the mediation process can be hectic, but sometimes it is, easy to go through depending on the complexity of the matter. But again, a lot of the employees just needs to understand these things do take time to resolve.
Okay, now we're about to go to the 8 a.m. news break, and I want to quickly ask you, out of the complaints that you do get and they have to go to the DPP, do you know how many employers are found liable? Do you have any kind of stats on that?
We can get it, but we didn't walk with it.
No problem.
today.
No problem. All right. I'm going to put that in my head to make sure I ask you that for next time. Or in our little 15-minute break. We'll see what happens here.
Yes.
I might put Sacha to some extra work right now. We got to go to the 8 a.m. news right now. And when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with the Department of Labor and Pensions. And I'm going to open up the phone lines as well. If you have any questions, please remember they cannot be case specific, but you can ask some general questions to the ladies that are here to hopefully be able to answer your questions today.
Thank you, Kathy. And studio time by Foster's is 8 o'clock.
When you're on the go, the experienced team at Foster's Pharmacy are here to help. Drop off your prescription while you shop or WhatsApp us and we'll prepare it, ready for your arrival.
Whether you need prescription or over-the-counter medications, blood glucose testing, or advice on vitamins and supplements, we're here early in the morning to late at night. Both of our locations at our Camana Bay and airport stores are open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday.
For more info, visit fosters.ky/pharmacy. Foster's Pharmacy. Better health because we care.
We are Radio Cayman, covering Cayman Right, Little Cayman, and Grand Cayman. 1 in a million.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com.
For today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. Multiple cops find themselves in the hospital after an alarming spike in attacks on police officers.
So far this year, we have seen 24 incidents during which a police officer was assaulted. It is concerning that there appears to be an uptick in these types of incidents, but the public should rest assured that each one is being thoroughly investigated and will be prosecuted to the fullest extent possible.
Royal Cayman Islands Police Service Commissioner Kurt Walton tells Radio Cayman of those 24 assaults this year, several of them took place just in the last 2 weekends. On August 16th, an officer was bitten by a suspect while making an arrest during a domestic incident. Later that day, another officer was attacked and bitten by a dog while attempting to arrest a man. And last Saturday, an off-duty officer who identified herself was hit by a man while attempting to de-escalate a fight between him and another woman at Camana Bay. The officers in each of these incidents were taken to the hospital for treatment and subsequently discharged. Arrests have been made in all of those incidents. A 24-year-old avoids jail time after being convicted of a violent assault that left his friend's face fractured in 3 places. Radio Cayman's Jeffy Ebanks reports.
Colin Anthony Sully was found guilty of grievous bodily harm following a fight at a social gathering in November 2022. The victim required multiple surgeries, both locally and overseas. Despite the severity of the injuries, the court suspended Sully's 18-month sentence, citing several mitigating factors, including the time it took for the case to reach a trial, his efforts to address personal issues, and his role as a caregiver to his child. His former partner asked the court not to jail him as she relies on him for support. Sully, who struggles with mental health and substance abuse, will remain under probation and must complete 100 hours of community service. The judge noted that Sully and the victim have since reconciled, calling a community-based sentence the most appropriate. Jeffy Ebanks, Radio Cayman News.
And in other news, a proposed subdivision in Little Cayman is heading back to the Development and Control Board after their approval for the project was quashed by the Planning Appeals Tribunal. The Planning Appeals Tribunal remitted the application back to the Development and Control Board for rehearing in May. It's for a 54-lot subdivision at Sam McCoy's Drive in Little Cayman. 1 lot is for a road and the remainder are for future development. The neighbor who appealed the decision argued the planning board failed to consider insufficient infrastructure to accommodate the number of people who could ultimately build homes on the site. And in the original application, the Department of Environment urged the board not to approve the project based on potential impacts to local wildlife and the current number of undeveloped subdivisions already in Little Cayman. The DOE said as of 2021, there were more than 1,000 undeveloped subdivisions under the size of 1 acre across Little Cayman, pointing out that if all those were developed for housing, it could add more than 2,200 people to the island's current population of about 300. The Planning Appeals Tribunal also agreed that the board failed to consider the 1975 guidelines for development control for Little Cayman. The Cayman Development Group project is on the agenda for tomorrow's DCB meeting. You can find the full agenda online at planning.ky. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which takes us out of the newscast. I'm Karsley Fuller.
BBC News with Moira Alderson. A manhunt is underway in Australia after a gunman shot dead 2 police officers and seriously injured a third in an ambush near Melbourne. People have been told to stay indoors and schools were placed in temporary lockdown. In Israel, supporters of hostages in Gaza are holding a day of national protest demanding that they are brought home. The protesters have called on Donald Trump to help finalise a Gaza ceasefire deal that will include the return of the hostages. Norway's Wealth Fund is selling its shares in several companies that have links to Israel. 5 of them are Israeli banks and 1 is a US construction manufacturer, Caterpillar. The Constitutional Court of South Africa has ruled that the former Zambian president Edgar Lungu should be buried in his homeland. Lungu died in South Africa in June. His family has tried to prevent the body being repatriated to Zambia. The former president of Sri Lanka, Ranil Wickremesinghe, has been granted bail by a court in the capital, Colombo, 4 days after being arrested on charges of misusing state finances. He's denied the charges. BBC News.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Boddentown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin are the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Boddentown. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman with the latest up-to-date, accurate news and information. For your convenience, the headline news will be repeated on our sister station, Breeze 105.3 FM, weekdays at 8:30 a.m. Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or download the Radio Cayman app in the App Store or log on to www.radiocayman.gov.ky and stay connected to what's happening in the community. Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Tune in every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. for Radio Cayman's Midday Newscast. Radio Cayman, the People's Station, your trusted official source for the latest news. The 12 p.m. news is proudly brought to you by Health City Cayman Islands. World-class healthcare within your reach.
Score a $1,000 Kirk Office voucher for all your back-to-school needs when you sign up for Flowmania. Sign up today and use your Kirk Office voucher for laptops, Sharpies, and everything in between. So your little scholar can start the school year with the things they need. And you can keep more of your cash in your pocket for the things you want. Sign up for Flowmania in-store or online and claim your $1,000 Kirk Office voucher today. Flow. We keep your rhythm flowing.
The 8 a.m. weather update brought to you by CG Britcade, where people come first.
Pleasant good morning. Let's take a look at the very latest weather report. Current temperature is 87 degrees. Relative humidity is 75%. The barometric pressure, 29.98 inches and falling. The wind is northeast at 9 knots. Overnight low temperature was 85 degrees. Synopsis indicate a decrease in showers is expected today as the tropical wave moves out of the Western Caribbean, along with moderate winds and seas over the Cayman area. Radar imagery show isolated showers in and around the Cayman area, moving towards the southwest. The National Hurricane Center has discontinued monitoring the area of disturbed weather designated as 99L, as further development of the system is not expected at this time. Now, the forecast for the Cayman Islands for today calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of afternoon showers and possible thunder, and temperatures will rise to the low 90s with a heat index near 106 degrees Fahrenheit. Your winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. You can expect for tonight partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers and temperatures dipping to the low 80s tonight. Winds will be east to northeast 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Today's high tide will occur this morning at 11:20, low tide this evening at 3 minutes past 5, and a high tide again tonight at 10:53. The sun will set this evening at 6:43 and will rise tomorrow morning at 10 minutes after 6. And the outlook is calling for a slight increase in showers associated with a tropical wave that is expected to drift near the Cayman area by Wednesday evening. And that's the very latest on your weather report.
Aunt Angie, how does it feel to have broken the bull riding world record?
Sore, Sean. That bull was angry.
Angie, I think that bull is headed towards your red convertible.
I broke the world record and he broke my car. Oh well, at least I've got CG Comprehensive Motor to cover this.
Get covered for collision, damage, and more. CG Brit-K. Good like that. All benefits are subject to policy provisions, including eligibility at the time of service.
The 8 a.m. weather update brought to you by CG Brit-K, where people come first.
Mark your calendars for the Caribbean's ultimate gaming event. In the heart of the Caribbean, a storm is rising, the battleground is set, and the ultimate showdown is about to begin. This year, the games hit harder than ever. Fortnite, FC 25, Super Smash Bros, NBA 2K25, and iRacing. Whether you're building, brawling, scoring, or driving, this is your stage. Top cosplayers, content creators, and gamers are flying in for one epic weekend in Grand Cayman. Meet Brown Bakugo, Kawiwi, and Austin John Plays. Snap pics, get autographs, or even one-on-one them live on stage. Gamers Bay isn't just a tournament, it's cosplay, merch, VR, creator booth, free play zones, prizes, and the epicenter of Caribbean esports. Think you've got what it takes? Step up and compete for your share of $10,000 in cash and prizes. Win glory, bragging rights, and cold hard cash. Gamers Bay 9, September 27th and 28th at the John Gray Gymnasium. Level up, lock in, let's play. For tickets and team registrations, head over to gamersbayevent.com.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Enjoy a delicious start to your day with breakfast from Subway.
Top of the morning to you. Let's check in with traffic, see what's happening on our roads. Coming from the east, further up on Shamrock Road and Rex Creighton Boulevard, flowing at a moderate pace. Further down, traffic a little steady, but nothing to worry about too much on the Linford Pearson Highway. Coming off of Barbara Thompson Way, moderate flow of traffic, as well as Agnes Way. Slow moving traffic on Crew Road, looks like a crawlathon heading towards the Georgetown area. Expect some delays and some patience needed as you arrive at your final destinations. Heading east on Crew Road, traffic is moderate. No issues on Owen Roberts Drive. Traffic is light on Edward Street. Into Georgetown on Shedmore, looking pretty good. And from the West Bay 4-way stop, flowing at a moderate pace. And a little steady traffic on Huldah Avenue. Godfrey Nixon Way and Eastern Avenue, flowing at a moderate pace. Coming off of the Esleigh Tibbetts Highway, a little steady bit flowing traffic. And continuing on to North Sound Road, Industrial Park area, flowing at a good pace. And that's what's happening on your roads. Join us again at about 10 minutes past 12. We'll give you another look at traffic. Remember, click it or ticket.
There's something new at Subway. Indulge your taste buds with our new barbecue pork rib sandwich tender. Smoky pork ribs smothered in sweet and tangy barbecue sauce, built just the way you like it. It's bold, rich, and seriously satisfying. But hurry, it's here for a limited time only. Order now on the Subway Cayman Islands app for quick in-store pickup, or get it delivered with Bento or Let's Eat. The all-new barbecue pork rib sandwich, only at Subway. Subway. Eat fresh.
Yummy.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Enjoy a delicious start to your day with breakfast from Subway.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Welcome back to The Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and we are talking with the Department of Labor and Pensions. So everything you want to know about, general questions about labor and pensions, gratuity, spoke a tiny little bit about the leave calculators that they have on the DLP's website. We're going to get more into this discussion. And before we went to the 8 a.m. break, I know I had asked Sacha if they had any stats when it came to having, finding employees liable for not being in compliance with the Labor Act. Yes. Right. And so Sacha said, let me see if I can find something out during this little break here. So were you able to find any info for us?
I was. Thank God that my boss is listening.
Wonderful. Thank you, boss.
So as I said, help. She was like, I'm on it. And she notified me that we do have at least approximately 57 active matters in court from a labor perspective at this time. We would have to do more research if you wanted to know, in the last how many years, 2-3 years, employers were found liable. We would have to go deeper into that. But we can confirm that it is 57 active cases from a labor, from the labor unit that we have right now. I also wanted just to add that the mediation process, when we get back the guidance from DPP to say, if they come back and say, okay, we recommend charges for, failing to pay wages, we then review that with the director. The director reviews it and he makes that final decision to say, okay, let's proceed based on the instructions or the guidance received from DPP. So yes, DPP provides us with their feedback based on whether or not it makes sense to proceed. The director then says, okay, let's proceed based on the information we receive from DPP.
Okay, that clears that up. Thank you. I know that in the break, Madennys, you were emphasizing something about the employees and how fearful some of them are, but stressing the importance of why they should approach the DLP if they're having issues being paid.
Right. So as I was saying during the break, it is extremely important that once an employee becomes aware that the employer is not meeting their obligations under the Labor Act or the National Pensions Act, to come into our office right away to either seek guidance or notify us of the issues that that are going on at the moment. What we are seeing is that employees are waiting years, specifically right before they're about to go on rollover in most cases, to bring these issues to our attention. And then it's not quite easy for us to have to go back years with an investigation to find out exactly what has been going on. So there are some cases that the employees are really not aware of their benefits under the Labor Act, but in most cases they are aware, and either they're fearful to lose their employment or their work permit or their ability to stay on island, and they allow this behavior to continue for years upon years until either the professional relationship has broken or that they have to leave the island. So what we want to encourage everyone to do, if you're aware that your employer is not meeting their obligations, come into our office as soon as possible. Sacha, who's part of the Labor Investigations Unit, she can elaborate a bit more of the avenues available for persons to come in and make these reports.
Please, and can you tell us also how many people are part of that team in the investigations unit?
So right now we have, and I'm going through the officers, my team in my head. So I'm just going to name them because maybe it'd be bad. So we have Miss Elizabeth McIntosh. She is also a senior officer in the labor unit. She is our bilingual officer, so is Miss Madennys. Mm-hmm. We also have Miss Ava Marie, which she is also a senior officer. Mr. Sean Basil, again, another senior officer. And then we are supported by Mr. Taran and Miss Mulgrave and Miss Dilbert. So Miss Grace Ann Mulgrave and Miss Tuscany Dilbert. They are our newest addition to the team. So we are growing. Before we were
7, including you.
Thank you. You were counting.
Yes, she was. So was I. Somehow I lost count. Don't ask me.
I did too. So we are a growing team because the offenses, we find that there's a lot out there for us to do, and we need the bodies, we need the help to ensure that we are enforcing the compliance section. So we together as a team, we do on-site, we assist Miss Madennys and her inspection team, or I do from a gratuity perspective. And then we have those employees that come in. We always stress from day one that if it's just information you need, if you just want to make sure your employer is doing something right, it's okay. You can come to us. That information will remain confidential. As you walk out, you don't have to have any fear. We will not be contacting your employer. The only time your employer is contacted is if you have actually lodged a complaint that we now need to mediate with that employer. And even then, you have to sign giving us consent to even contact your employer. So we take data protection and confidentiality, we take that very serious in all sections of the Labor Department. So, we encourage you, don't be afraid to come to us. We will help you as long as the legislation gives us that authority to do so. If it's just guidance, either sign up for the training or come ask us questions, or you could even give us a call and we can walk you through those questions that you have as well.
Let me also add that we have a confidential hotline. 9453073, right? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, just making sure I give you the correct number, where people can actually call and be completely anonymous and just say, I know this issue, or I want, can you inspect this company, or, just share information with the department. And then that can start the process, even if they don't want to physically come into the office to talk to us or appear in our office. That at least gives us kind of a tip, basically, right, that there's a problem, and then we can move it forward.
How often is that hotline utilized?
Quite often, and just so it's clear, it is completely confidential, and it is actually checked by a member of the senior management team. None of the staff actually have access. That is our effort to ensure it is truly confidential.
Okay, Madennys, I think you wanted to say.
That's the same, just what Miss Amy said.
Okay,
Yes,
wonderful.
yes.
Okay, got you there. Thank you. So some of the key responsibilities that employers often overlook, I know we mentioned a couple of them. And I think, Amy, I want you to stress about the pensions.
Okay.
Because it blew me away when you said some employers don't even provide a pension plan. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah. So from a pension perspective, so first of all employers are required to have a pension plan in the Cayman Islands. All employers, okay? And you can do it one of two ways. The most common way is that employers participate in what we call a multi-employer plan, which is the Chamber, the Silver Thatch, all of those you hear about. There's a list on our website. There's 7 of them. You can approach either of them and get information about enrollment, okay? So that's normally the way the pension plan is established. However, there are a few employers who have the expertise to actually set up their own pension plan, and the law allows for either. If you're an employer that wants to have your own pension plan, obviously you need to have the expertise to manage a pension plan and deal with all the reporting that you have to do to DLP. So either way, you must have a pension plan. Once you have a pension plan, then going back to what I was talking about eligibility, you need to know who needs to be enrolled in that plan. And the most common misperception is about the 9 months. That's the thing people are most confused about. And I'll reiterate what I said earlier. It's Caymanians and permanent residents are pensionable immediately, regardless of probation. And then non-Caymanians are pensionable after 9 months of employment in the Cayman Islands, not necessarily with a specific employer. So for 3 months, you might be working for employer A, and then 6 months, you move over to employer B. And then while you're with employer B, you become pensionable. Or you leave employer B and you move to employer C. Well, at that point, when you started there, you become pensionable, which is why it's important for both the employee and the employer to understand the concepts of eligibility. So once the employer has the plan, then we've established eligibility. Then it's about enrollment. So in order to enroll, the employer would get the relevant paperwork from the pension plan administrator. The employee would fill it out. The employer would fill it out. So they both have a role to play in the process. They return it to the pension plan administrator, and then the employee becomes a member of the pension plan, and therefore they have the rights of members of pension plans, right? In addition, after they're enrolled, the employer's obligation then is to make the contributions, right? So under the National Pensions Act, the contribution rate is 10%. So 5% is normally deducted from the employee. And just to be clear, An employee cannot tell an employer, I don't want you to deduct the 5%. No, employers have a right to take the deduction because the law requires for the deduction. It's not like, you're repaying a loan. You're paying a mandatory statutory obligation. So the employer has the right. He doesn't need the permission of the employee. So the employer takes the deduction of 5%, matches the 5%, so you have 10%. That then goes and is paid over to the pension plan administrator. And critical about the timing of the payment. So just as Sacha was explaining the 30 days under the Labor Act, there's a specific time frame under the Pensions Act. So contributions are paid on a monthly basis. So, for example, January contributions are due the 15th of February. So it's basically the 15th day of the following month is the way the Act describes it. So January would be the 15th of February, February the 15th of March. So the employer's obligation is, as I explained, to enroll the employees, to take the deduction, and make the payments into the pension plan. One of the critical things employers also need to do is not just make the payment, but they also need to provide what we call a contribution sheet. And what that sheet says is, okay, we're paying $1,000. $500 is for Kathy, $100 is for Sacha, the rest is for Madennys, and $50 is for Amy. So the employer, yes, you take the deduction, yes, you make the payment, but you also need to provide the contribution sheet. And it is from the contribution sheet, then the pension plan administrator knows how the funds are to be distributed. So you know how much belongs to each person.
Okay.
So those are very critical things that employers need to be doing and employees need to be aware of as well.
And what are the penalties if the employer fails to provide those pension plans or pay out the pension?
Well, under the National Pensions Act in 2023, I believe it was, we increased the penalties for failure to provide a pension plan. They're actually, the initial offense is $20,000 or up to $20,000. And we now have provisions for imprisonment. So it's $20,000 or imprisonment for 2 years or both. And it is the magistrate that decides how much is the penalty and whether there's imprisonment, and if it is, how much. And then there's also, we introduced a tiered system so that after the first offense, it's 20 and 2 years. After the second offense, I believe it goes up to $50,000 and 3 years. And then after the third offense, it's up to $100,000 and 5 years imprisonment. So all of those already exist under the Pensions Act.
So considering from the tiers that you introduced and the amendment to the Pensions Act in 2023, from top of your head, if you can say, have you seen employers in more compliance with the Pensions and Labor Act, or are you finding, like, the tier system, does it deter people, scare them a little bit? I mean, it would scare me. So are you finding that's working in that sense?
The reason it was introduced is because employers need to understand the significance of failure to provide a pension plan. Yes. So I don't think we have any of the large penalties having been determined as the court as yet. But I think as time progresses, those will definitely come into play, particularly the one about imprisonment. Because unfortunately, we have to spend time talking about the bad employers. We rarely ever talk about the good ones. But the bad employers need to understand the implications of their actions. And the only way they're going to understand is basically if someone really holds them accountable, and that's what the court's for.
Absolutely. And as we bring it back to my favorite Caribbean proverb that I learned moving here, what you allow is what will continue, right?
Very true.
So being able to hold the bad apples accountable is this big thing.
Yes, definitely so.
Accountability seems to be a really hard thing
It
across
is.
the board,
It is.
period, for people, professionally or personally.
Yeah.
Accountability is a thing.
It is. It's a challenge for all of us. As a matter of fact, I mean, it's one of the goals in the civil service as well. It's just accountability across the board.
Yeah.
We need to hold ourselves accountable. We need to hold our employer accountable.
Absolutely.
That's the only way things happen.
We did have a comment come in from a listener, and the comment says, the law does not go far enough to protect the employees. There are lots of employees that are afraid to report unlawful actions by their employers because of retributions, cancellation of their permits, etc. Employees need to know that the Labor Board, it's the Department of Labor and Pensions.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But to go back to the comment, employees need to know that the Labor Board is there to protect them. So
yes, and
agreed.
Maddie or Miss Madennys did say earlier that we do know that these are concerns for some of the employees, and there are legitimate concerns, especially being here on a work permit. You know, you're providing for your family, and if you lose that, then what, right? So we do understand the fear, which is why, again, the confidential hotline, if you are afraid to come forward for yourself, if it's happening to you, then 99% of the chance it's happening to the rest of your colleagues. So even if you just leave a tip on the confidential hotline, we can find a way, as long as we have sufficient information that can justify us doing, you know, an on-site inspection or an audit. We can take some sort of action if that employee is that terrified to come forward and speak to us in person. Or, you know, send us an email. You could create an email address that doesn't identify who you are if you want to say to us, this is a situation that is happening. How do I address it? We get, you know, tons of emails coming to us on a weekly basis from employees who's just saying, I have the situation, here's the details, what information can you provide to me from the Labor Act or the Pension Act? We address those questions. We have no idea who we're dealing with. And, you know, these are the different avenues that we provide so people can try to become more comfortable with sharing their situations with us, because if we don't know, we can't fix it.
Yeah.
And just so the public is aware, the email address is dlp@gov.ky.
And to repeat the hotline number,
945-3073.
Perfect. Thank you. I have a question that came in from a listener, and I'm hoping, Amy, you might be able to answer this.
Okay.
Good morning. At what age do you stop getting pension? I know people working at bus warden ages in their 70s, they are saying if you get a lump sum from your previous employment, you're not allowed pension.
Well, under the National Pensions Act, you're not required to pay contributions after the age of 65. Right. You can. So this is a good opportunity for me to talk about that. So pension starts from the age of 18 and then up to the age of 65. So after the age of 65, you're not required, neither the employee or the employer are required to make any pension contributions of any kind. There is the ability to make additional contributions if either party wants, and those are treated as additional voluntary contributions under the Act, but nothing after 65.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Listener, we hope we answered your question right there. We're going to take you to a commercial break right now. Reminder that if you do have any questions, comments, anything you want to share, but you can't talk about a specific case with the DLP, do call us at 1-800-534-8255. 949-6990, 949-8037, or you can WhatsApp call or WhatsApp text us at 925-3261.
Looking for fresh, healthy food that's full of flavor? Then you've got to visit Kirk Market. Our dishes are made with fresh, high-quality ingredients. Enjoy vibrant mixed greens or satisfying pasta salads. Or try one of our delicious grill options like blackened chicken, spicy beef steak, or grilled salmon. Looking for something light and flavorful? We've got sushi rolls and poke bowls prepared daily. And don't forget to explore a hot bar or Billy Fresh salad at the salad bar. Stop by Kirk Market today for breakfast, lunch, or dinner and taste the difference. Eat well, live well with Kirk Market.
I'm Michael Webster.
And I'm Denise Brown of Cayman Insurance Center.
Family is not the most important thing, it's everything.
We have worked with the community and their families on protecting themselves for the future.
Whether it's providing top-rated life insurance
or protecting your family's household investment.
From our family to yours, we understand and we care.
I'm Denise Brown. Call me at 814-7229.
And I'm Michael Webster at 925-5433.
We are Cayman Insurance Center.
Specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services at an affordable rate. We are Michael and
Denise at Cayman Insurance Center.
Call today.
We are in the hurricane season, and knowing what to do after a hurricane can be as important as preparing for the storm. After the passage of a hurricane, seek medical attention if it is needed at hospitals and clinics for those persons who are injured. Do not touch power lines and cables that are down. They may be active. Report them to 911 or the utility emergency hotlines. Broken tree limbs should be removed from around homes and buildings if possible. This hurricane information was brought to you by Breeze FM and Radio Cayman.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Welcome back to The Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller. I am talking with the Department of Labor and Pensions. And in the studio with me this morning, I have with me Amy Wolliston. She's the Deputy Director of Pensions. We have Sacha Rankine, Senior Inspector of Labor and Pensions. And Madennys Fernandez-Rosales, Senior Inspector of Labor and Pensions. You heard me just sing your name again, I know.
I was just about to say, you're right. It just rolls off.
It rolls. I'm just Kathy Miller.
I'm loving it, actually.
Kathy Miller just goes down. There's no, you know. I'm going to have to talk to my mom about that, or maybe I'm going to have to change my last name. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, we're going to pivot here before I get into that part. We're going to pivot here and turn to gratuities. Talk about gratuities a little bit. So I guess let's just start with clarifying how gratuities should be handled under the Cayman Islands law. And I know we have got a call coming in, so we'll take that call after this question to you.
Okay. So gratuities, first of all, we need to have the clear understanding that there's a differentiation between gratuity and service charge and a tip. There's three different things.
I thought tip and gratuity were the same thing.
No.
Oh, geez.
That's why I'm here.
Yes.
So the gratuity under the Labor Act, and I'm just going to read what the definition says so there's no misunderstanding. Gratuity means any money or other thing of value collected or received from a customer or a client of a business which is in the excess of a basic contractual liability of that customer, and it is purported to be collected or received in respect of the quality of service afforded to that customer, and without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing includes any sum whether calculated based on the fixed percentage or otherwise. Now, this is from customers that attend a hotel, a condominium, a restaurant, and a licensed premises or other place of entertainment that has been actually approved to collect gratuities by the Director of the Department of Labor and Pensions. So that is gratuities. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know is that gratuity is optional. It is not a mandatory thing that customers have to pay. Now, when we say it's optional, it's not for you to go out there and refuse to pay it, because then you're actually affecting that servers or the server, the back of house, the front of house staff. You're affecting their take-home wages. So while it is something that is optional to pay, you can refuse to pay it, but be mindful of why you're refusing to pay it. So when it comes to the service charge, a service charge is a fixed amount that is not optional. Then the tips itself is saying, okay, well, I like the way Miss Kathy treated me at the restaurant. I'm going to leave a tip of $100. That's me making that determination to say I'm leaving you a specific amount. When it comes to gratuity, the gratuity is based on a fixed percentage that has been approved by the Department of Labor and Pensions. So most restaurants you go to, you would find 15%, 16%, 18%. That is a fixed amount, and that is not changed. So if you go to today, it's 15%. More than likely tomorrow it's going to be 15% unless I approve through the director and my supervisor are increasing that gratuity rate between today and tomorrow.
Okay. So I'm just going by my memory right now, looking at receipts. There's a service charge, and I thought the service charge was what that gratuity charge.
And
so am I mixing it up? Or is there two separate charges on there?
Yeah, so the service charge that you see on the receipts, we're working with these employers right now to try to get it fixed because it is actually reflecting the wrong name. So when you're looking at the receipts and if you see service charge, it's supposed to reflect gratuity.
Okay.
So that is why we're out there now. We're doing a lot of compliance checks. And anytime we see something saying service charge that is in fact gratuity, because you have been approved to collect gratuities, the Labor Act does not speak to a service charge at all.
Okay.
So if you see on your receipt, it says service charge of 15%, it's supposed to reflect gratuity. So my job as the officer is to educate those entities that, look, you've been approved to collect gratuities. We need you to properly and accurately reflect that it is gratuities you're charging your customers.
Right, because this reminds me of when we know the example of when you buy a ticket, let's say for an event online, and it has all these 25 charges for something that's going to happen in the future that you don't know about. There's charges for that, right?
Right.
So that could be confusing in a restaurant. So if I see something that says service charge and not gratuity, do I, as a patron, and I'm not sure if you can answer this, have the right to say, you know what, that's actually against the law. Service charges is not supposed to be on here at all. I don't know what this is. I'm not paying it.
Well, what you can do, you can reach out to the Department of Labor and Pensions and let us know that you went to a restaurant. This is the name of the restaurant. This is what you saw. And then as a gratuity officer, we will then look into that concern that you had and address those situations. But like I said, we are actively trying to work with we have 142 registered establishments. So we're actively working with all of those to ensure that they're reflecting gratuity on their bills, on their website, on their menus, to make sure that the clients are being informed of what they're paying.
That's such an interesting differentiation.
Yeah.
And remember what she said about refusing to pay and how it has implications.
Yes.
So
Yes.
perhaps the first place to start is to just ask clarification. What is the service charge on my bill?
Yes. I
And
feel you
then
there.
if they clarify, oh, that's actually the gratuity, well, then you know.
Then
right.
you know.
Yes.
That's helpful, yes. I mean, I believe in paying it because I used to work in a restaurant. I know what that's like.
Me too,
So,
actually. I did as well.
It's very much was appreciated.
Exactly. Always.
Okay, I feel like I had another question there about the grass charge, but it's kind of it's escaping my brain right now.
Well, while you think about that,
Thank you.
Then I just want to ensure that our listeners understand who can collect gratuities, who can partake in it. So employees that are not of a managerial level can partake in the distribution of gratuities. So from the time you hold a post saying you're the manager of FMB, you automatically are not included in the distribution of gratuities. So, there are clear categories. And again, if you're not sure in, the entity that you're working in, if you think your manager is partaking in it, again, reach out to us. We can do research. We do have all of the registration information. We can do our internal investigation. And then we can verify whether or not in your specific area, if everyone that is entitled to gratuities is actually getting what they deserve.
And it came back to me. So thank you. Thank you for buying me that time right there. So it came back to me. So on the receipts that we might be receiving in the restaurant right now, can you confirm if some establishments are currently putting a service charge and a gratuity charge on there?
I haven't seen both.
Okay.
I just think they're interchanging the word.
Got it.
So a lot of people think that a service charge is a gratuity. And I can't speak for outside of Cayman because I know in the U.S. maybe it is. But under the Labor Act, it only acknowledges gratuities.
Gotcha.
And that's what we are proving, a gratuity scheme and not a service charge scheme.
Gotcha. And asking because I swear by my own memory, which is not always reliable, that I've seen 2 charges on a receipt, hence me asking if that's a thing here. I'm not sure if, Susan, did we have a caller on the line? We do? All right. Should we take that call? All right. It's a WhatsApp call, so let's take that call right now. Good morning. Thank you for calling The Buzz.
Yes, good morning.
How are you doing today?
Okay, and you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for calling. What's your question or comment?
I have a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, I was working construction for a company for about 5 years. And it was a big contract. Had subcontractors on the job. We were one of the subcontractors. And it was the cost of the building was almost $400 million. And halfway through the finishing of the building, my employer started to make us pay all of our health insurance instead of them paying half. And I mentioned to my employer that I wasn't able to afford that. And my employer told me that if I didn't do it, then I would mess it up for everybody else, which means that everybody else must have agreed to do so because the majority of those other people were on work permits. And I told them I was not able to do so. But in order to not cause any problems, I saved all my receipts and all the deductions that they took out of my pay for the next 2.5 years. And when I did finish working with them, I took all my receipts to the labor department in the government building. And a gentleman helped me there to get in contact with my employer. And they came to the building. And we sat down and we had a talk. We showed them all my receipts with my deductions. And I received every 1 cent that they took from me. But the other people did not do so. They did not go to the labor department because they were on work permit. And the majority of these people who were on work permit working for this company, the employer who hired these people are from the same country that these people are from. So that's why you see the majority of the time, some companies are not willing to hire Caymanians because they know they're not able to do to us what they're able to do to people who are on work permits. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. But before you hang up, I just want to ask, when you went to the Department of Labor and Pensions and, you know, explain what was happening, and it was amazing that you had all of your receipts, by the way, kudos to you for that. After you did that, did you at all let anybody that you worked with know? Did you let any of your fellow employees know what the steps you took to try to collect your money?
Yes, I let a few of them know.
Okay.
But they weren't willing to go forward with it the way that I did because they were afraid to lose their work.
Right. Understand. I just want to know if you communicated that, and you did, and it still resulted in fear from foreigners attempting to do the same thing. So thank you so much for sharing that experience. I think it's important to share those kind of experiences.
You're welcome.
All right. Ladies, did you want to comment on that at all?
I just wanted to comment that I think he may have gone to the Health Insurance Commission, simply because the Department of Labor and Pensions does not deal with health insurance matters that he was discussing.
He mentioned health, yeah.
Yeah, and he also mentioned Government Admin Building, and that's not where we're located. We're in Midtown Plaza. So I think he went to the Health Insurance Commission, but kudos for him for actually doing so. Mm-hmm. And that's just a testament to how departments, strive to enforce the legislation and protect the employees' rights. Right. And in that case, sounds like it was a success.
Yes, we got to go to commercial break right now. I know we still got to touch on stuff when it comes to gratuities and a couple more things to talk about, training opportunities and whatnot. So let's go to the commercial break and we'll return to the topic.
Tired of burning cash at the gas pump and wasting time in traffic? Say goodbye to gridlock and hello to freedom with a Kimco scooter from Automotive Art. Trusted in over 100 countries, Kimco is now known worldwide for reliable, fuel-efficient scooters built to last. Perfect for Cayman's roads. With 2 models to choose from, the Agility 125cc for just $23.99 and the Agility RS Naked 125cc for $24.99. It's the smart, budget-friendly way to beat traffic and cut costs. Visit Automotive Art today and ride smarter with Kimco, because saving money should never mean slowing down.
Looking for fresh, healthy food that's full of flavor? Then you've got to visit Kirk Market. Our dishes are made with fresh, high-quality ingredients. Enjoy vibrant mixed greens or satisfying pasta salads. Or try one of our delicious grill options like blackened chicken, spicy beef steak, or grilled salmon. Looking for something light and flavorful? We've got sushi rolls and poke bowls prepared daily. And don't forget to explore a hot bar or Billy Fresh salad at the salad bar. Stop by Kirk Market today for breakfast, lunch, or dinner and taste the difference. Eat well, live well with Kirk Market.
Cayman, it's time to move. Lace up those sneakers and join the Alzheimer's and Dementia Association of the Cayman Islands on Sunday, September 7th at Cayman Bay for the World Walks Against Dementia 2025 5K Run Walk. Be part of something big, a global movement spanning 61 countries, and to walk and run together to raise awareness and support for people living with dementia, their families, and caregivers. One day, one cause, one powerful step at a time. Register now at Race Caribbean or download the form at adacayman.ky. Adults are $25 and children 17 and under or $10. Let's walk for those who can't. Let's walk for change. Let's walk against dementia. ADACI. Together, we're making a difference.
Join us today and be the key to breaking down HIV stigma and getting educated. The Cayman AIDS Foundation is a nonprofit organization working diligently to eliminate HIV stigma and to help make a difference. We are dedicated to overall wellness, community campaign, and education outreach programs. Know your status. Get tested today. Early detection could save your lives. Call the HSA and make an appointment. This message has been brought to you by the Cayman AIDS Foundation.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Welcome back to The Buzz. I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and we are talking with the Department of Labor and Pensions. And in studio, I have with me Amy Wolliston, Deputy Director for Pensions, Sacha Rankine, Senior Inspector for Labor and Pensions, and Madennys Fernandez-Rosales, Senior Inspector for Labor and Pensions. I even have her dancing over there when I say the name. All right, so we got a great comment from one of the callers, and thank you for sharing a positive story in what happened with you when your health insurance wasn't being paid. So I think you did the right thing. An important thing to note as well, as Madennys did say a little earlier, that I note that the caller said it was 2.5 years that he was collecting all of his receipts and evidence of his deductions or non-deductions. And she'd emphasized before, try not to wait that long. As soon as it's happening, go in and try to take care of the matter, because as we said, what you allow is what will continue, as was evidenced in the case with our caller who shared his experience. So turning back towards the GRAT side, we know that there has been some changes with minimum wage. So we're looking for January 1st, 2026. I think it's $8.75 an hour. The minimum wage is going to go up to. How does this affect anything with the gratuity scheme, or I guess kind of throw a wrench into what you guys are trying to do at the DLP?
Well, it doesn't throw a wrench in it, but what will happen is when the minimum wage increase to $8.75 come January 1st, then what will happen is that, because currently the minimum wage at $6 an hour, once you actually approve to collect gratuities, you can then pay your service employees that are eligible to partake in gratuity at a rate at $4.50. So that's 25% of they're cutting that by 25%. So instead of $6, it's $4.50. So what will happen is when the minimum wage increased to $8.75, then the employer will then be allowed to remove 25% from that, and then the employee will be paid, I think it's $6.57. I had it all calculated for you this morning.
It's all right. Numbers go. It's the morning.
There are also frequently asked questions on our website about the upcoming increase to minimum wage.
Wage. Yeah. You guys were fast on that.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. So the minimum wage, again, is important for employees in the service industry to understand that you will be affected as well. But we will have more training. The more information that comes out, we will definitely post it on our social media, our website, our Facebook. Keep everyone updated, but it does have an impact there. Now, when we're talking about the wages, an employee that actually partake in gratuities should be paid gratuities every 2 weeks. Not every day, not every week, every 2 weeks. And gratuities is also pensionable. So these are things that a lot of employees are not aware of. They should be getting the gratuities every 2 weeks and not every day, because if it's paying every day, then you're not paying your proper pension contribution from that gratuity, which then becomes a us problem, labor and pensions. Now, the employer is required to keep these records, like I said earlier, for 3 years. If we do an on-site inspection and we ask for these records and they are nowhere to be found, then that employer can be charged. And upon conviction, that person can be fined, or that company can be fined $25,000. It doesn't say up to 25. It says a fine of $25,000 and to imprisonment for 12 months. So there's no and or are. It says both. Now, we have not had to take an employer to court as yet, so we don't know how this would work. But thankfully, the employers are taking heed, because $25,000 and imprisonment is a lot.
It is.
So this is a penalty that I think has kind of gotten to the employers to say, let's make sure that we are compliant with the Labor Act. Because if we don't have these records, then we can be fined. We can try to work with everyone, but there's only so much we can do. You have to do your part as an employer as well. Again, if we do provide that employer for the records, again, they have to keep those records for the 3 months. If they don't have those, not the 3 months, the 3 years. If they don't have those records for the 3 years, and upon conviction, they can be fined for $5,000 and to imprisonment for 6 months. So gratuity fines are a lot harsher than regular fines. So because you are then impacting these employees' wages, you know, you have to understand as an employer, you have to pay an employee what they've earned. You know, that's their benefit. They come out and work for it. They have to be paid. And if it's brought to our attention, we will do what the Labor Act says that we have the authority to do. We'll investigate if there's a breach, and if you have to go to court, we'll then leave it in the magistrate's hand at that point in time. But just be aware of the fines and penalties that is associated with not actually following through with what the Labor Act says.
Okay. A lot of information there
Yes.
with gratuity.
Yes. We do have a separate gratuity training session as well, because it's a lot of information that employers and employees need to be aware of when they're actually partaking and registered with the Department of Labor and Pension. The key thing is, I just said registered. So if you're not one of those 142 registered establishments, then you should not be collecting gratuities as well. So if you're collecting gratuities, then, you know, we'll ask you kindly at first to please register with the department. Stop the collection until you're registered. So we try to help you to become compliant. Again, if you're not, then obviously that will be a breach of the Labor Act as well.
Right. Okay. Now, you had mentioned training a couple times in there,
Yes.
and I know we have some upcoming training opportunities happening. And Madennys, I know you got to go soon, so let us know what we got to know about the training.
All right. So we have a specific training coming up on September 24th for young Caymanians under the age of 30 who are just entering the workforce or are already in the workforce that would like to know more about their entitlements under the Labor Act. So it's going to be on September 24th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Intergenerational Hub, which is located in the same building as DHL. It's free of cost, so that's a great thing. And we look forward to seeing these young Caymanians there on the 24th. Now, if you would like to register, you can do so by visiting our website at www.dlp.gov.ky. If you just need more information, you can contact our general phone line at 945-8960. Our email, like Ms. Amy said earlier, it's dlp@gov.ky. Now, the labor unit does conduct Labor Act trainings every quarter or so, if I am correct, right? But this specific training is a very special training because, like I said, it's geared towards young Caymanians who are just entering the workforce or who are already in the workforce and don't have a clue about what their entitlements or their benefits are and their responsibilities as well under the Labor Act. So we really look forward to seeing these persons register and come there on the 24th.
So this training, what people can expect to learn, young Caymanians under the age of 30, is you're going to learn what your employee benefits would be, whether in the public or private sector, or you're just focused on the private sector in that sense?
Just the private sector.
Just the private sector. Remember,
So-
that's our
Yes,
remit.
yes.
That's our remit. We don't deal with public sector.
So what happens in this training session, our goal is to make sure that these employees are aware that they are entitled to have a contract. They should be provided with a contract within 7 days, and if it isn't provided, then that is a breach. So these are key things. You know, you can't be a compliant employee if you don't know what is expected of you, and those expectations should be outlined in your contract. So we will go through the contract. We will go through your benefits as an employee, such as vacation, public holidays, sick leave, maternity leave, which doesn't apply to us anymore. So it goes through all of your your employment benefits, but it also then points out if you do become, if you have an issue, it will point out as well what can happen to you as an employee, as in the punishments that are outlined under the Labor Act. So you are made aware from day one, if I am not performing well, this is what should happen. If I just make a mistake and I'm terminated immediately, then you would know, say, wait, I attended the Labor Act training, this isn't right, I need to go and make a complaint. So you have to know what your benefits are as an employee, as well as we will outline what the employer has, under the Labor Act as well, what their obligations are. So it is key. And we encourage these young Caymanians to go out and register, and the registration can be done on our website. So once they go on the website to register, we'll communicate with you and we'll get further details at that time.
All right.
And this is all part of the, we were talking before about the role of the department as the regulator of both the Labor Act and the Pensions Act. But importantly, as Sacha mentioned earlier, the department doesn't represent either party. We are a neutral party, and we are here to enforce the law to ensure that employees are receiving the benefits that they are entitled to receive, and the employer is providing them.
Gotcha. All right. So this training is taking, we got to go to the 9 a.m. headline news, but just give us the date for that training upcoming.
September 24th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay. And is it a free session?
Free of cost at the Intergenerational Hub, which is located in the same building as DHL. To register, just head to our website, dlp.gov.ky.
I think this is such an essential training to do for any person entering the workforce.
It is.
Specifically in the private sector here, yes. But very, very essential to know your rights, what your benefits are, and what your employers are obligated to do for you as well.
Exactly.
Yes. So important to know. The more knowledge you're empowered with, the better, farther you're going to go in life. Hopefully, that's what we like to say. We're going to go to the 9 a.m. headline news. I'm going to keep a couple of them here a little bit longer with me, and we'll be back after the headline news.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, this is Headlines. Local, regional, international news.
The headline news is brought to you by Kirk Market and Health Services Authority.
Multiple police officers find themselves in the hospital after an alarming spike in attacks. The police commissioner says so far this year, the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service has seen 24 incidents during which a police officer was assaulted. Of those 24, 3 happened just in the last 2 weekends. In international news, families of hostages being held by Hamas are protesting against Israel a day after double Israeli strikes hit a hospital in Gaza. At least 20 people, including 5 journalists, were reportedly killed in the strikes on Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. The incident, which Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called a, quote, tragic mishap, has been met with condemnation. The UN Human Rights Office has called for, quote, justice and accountability. In Israel, local police say all roads have been reopened to traffic after major routes were blocked by protesters from the Hostages and Missing Families Forum. About 1,200 people were killed and 251 others taken to Gaza as hostages in Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack. 20 hostages held by Hamas are still believed to be alive. Israel responded with a massive military offensive. According to the Hamas-run health ministry, some 62,000 Palestinians have been killed. Israel does not allow international news organizations, including the BBC, into Gaza to report freely. Those are your headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
More news available at www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
Do you have a healthcare question but not sure who to ask? Contact HSA's Patient Call Center to speak to one of our experienced clinical team members. We are here to answer your questions and help guide you through your healthcare journey. Need to make an appointment? Our team can help. Contact HSA at 949-8600 or email info@hsa.ky. At HSA, we are committed to caring for you.
Looking for fresh, healthy food that's full of flavor? Then you've got to visit Kirk Market. Our dishes are made with fresh, high-quality ingredients. Enjoy vibrant mixed greens or satisfying pasta salads. Or try one of our delicious grill options like blackened chicken, spicy beef steak, or grilled salmon. Looking for something light and flavorful? We've got sushi rolls and poke bowls prepared daily. And don't forget to explore a hot bar or Billy Fresh salad at the salad bar. Stop by Kirk Market today for breakfast, lunch, or dinner and taste the difference. Eat well, live well with Kirk Market.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and we are just wrapping up our segment now with the Department of Labor and Pensions. I have with me Amy Wolliston, Deputy Director for Pensions, Sacha Rankine, Senior Inspector for Labor and Pensions, and Madennys Fernandez-Rosales, Senior Inspector with Labor and Pensions as well. Was there anything else about the training tip to talk on? I think there's another one coming up in November, right?
So in addition to the one on September 24th, which is geared towards specifically younger Caymanians, we also have a general training, a Labor Act training coming up on November 20th, which is going to take place at the same location, which is the Intergenerational Hub. And it's the cost for that one is $75, and persons can register by visiting our website.
Right. So it's either going to be the website or they're going to have to fill out the form. But the closer we get to that, because again, we are sustainability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're moving away from the paper. We're going to try to get the website available for registration by November 20th. But if that's not possible, we will be flooding our social media with how registration can be done. So there will be no excuses why these individuals cannot apply or, attend the session.
And speaking of social media, we will be giving away, I think it is 2 spots for the free of cost for this November 20th training. So it is very important that persons follow us on our social media channels. For Facebook, you can find us under Department of Labor and Pensions. And on Instagram is DLP Cayman. We are also on LinkedIn, Department of Labor and Pensions. So stay tuned to our social media because we will be giving away 2 free spots to the November 20th training, which is coming up.
Okay, and who's this training targeted for?
Anyone.
Employers, employees.
Okay.
Anyone can attend in the private sector.
And what the topics that you're covering in this training?
The basics of the Labor Act.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going through everything, probation, which is another hot topic, termination, resignation, fixed term contract. So we're going through everything. And this is the opportunity for everyone to ask those questions that they may have had and they just didn't have the time to call us. And, we can have a discussion at that time about those concerns.
Now, I do have a question that did come in from a listener, and it's in regards to the public sector, but I'm hoping we can perhaps flip it and look at the perspective if this was concerning the private sector.
Right.
So this question is, a young Caymanian person approached me with a concern that he's employed in a government department for almost 1 year now. When he was interviewed, he thought he would be part for full employment. However, he or she is there for almost 1 year and is being issued monthly employment contracts, which makes it hard for him to engage in any substantial financial endeavors. as his or her position is classified as temporary. Under what circumstances is this normal, or are they being taken advantage of? And I'm sure we can flip that. I'm sure similar circumstances occur in the private sector.
Yes. So in response to that question, I would suggest that the person contact either the ministry, who normally deals with HR matters for departments, or they can also contact the portfolio of the civil service. Either one of them should be able to give the person some guidance.
Okay.
But if we flip it to the private sector, I'll let the ladies answer that, since their expertise is the labor.
So that's why the statement of working conditions is important, which when they say statement of working conditions is in line with your contract. Now, if you get a contract that says you're employed from X date to Y date and you agree to that date, then when that end date comes, then you shouldn't be surprised that that is your last day, because from day one, you've signed agreeing that I'm only employed for a specific period. So if you don't have a contract, then that's a problem, because then you're not aware of what your terms are. Now, you can't say that under fixed term that, okay, I'm unfairly dismissed, because there's no dismissal. It's an agreement between both parties that, you're only employed for a specific period. Now, when it comes to month to month, I've never seen a month to month since I've been at DLP, but I've seen a yearly contract or a 6-month contract. And again, it's the same thing happens. We have instances where employees may be on a contract for 2 years. And at the end of that period, the employer say, thanks for your service. We wish you all the best. But knowing that you cannot come at that time to the Labor Department and say, I've been terminated, because the first thing we're going to ask you for is your statement of working conditions. And if your statement of working conditions shows us if you agree to that 2-year period, you were not unfairly dismissed. Mm-hmm. It was you sign agreeing that my last day with your company will be August 30th.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. So in regards to that question, as Amy did say, try to go to the Ministry HR and see what you can do there.
Or the portfolio of the civil service.
Yes. And I know it's a little unusual to issue contracts that are month to month in the government like that. So I think it's worth it to investigate that a little further, especially when you're young and you're trying to get your feet planted, right, in your career and in your life. So,
and after all, there's nothing wrong with asking a question to clarify what's your status and how you get from where you are to where you're seeking to be.
Yeah.
They should be able to explain at least.
This is your livelihood.
Exactly. Give you some sort of information.
Yeah. I know it can be hard sometimes, but we've got to eliminate the fear of asking questions that are going to give us clarity on our lives and the betterment of our lives and how we're moving forward. And
particularly when it comes to your employment. I mean, at the end of the day, we're working and we're trying to support ourselves and build a family and have a livelihood. So there's nothing wrong with asking a question. That's why we've established a confidential hotline, so that people can at least report something if there's a concern, and they can call the department if they have a question. They can email us. There's social media. That's why we have all these different avenues to give people an opportunity.
Right, gotcha. And that number again is 945-3073.
Yes, that's the confidential hotline. That's right.
Amy, was there anything regarding pensions? We got a couple minutes, I know, before we're going to go to a break and wrap. So
I'm sorry, Amy, before you move on to pensions, Ms. Madennys just need to stress the training.
Yes, I have a very important correction to make, and my apologies for the mistake on the date, but for the training in November that is open to everyone, it's actually on November 12th. And not November 20th. So November 12th, not the 20th. And thank you to Deputy Director Linwood, who's listening, that was able to correct me on that. So yes, for November is the 12th and not the 20th.
Hi-lo, Val, we miss you. I wish you were here with us. I'm calling you out to join me next time.
She might not be here physically, but she is here, trust me.
I need her in studio with me. I need to feel the energy. Calling you out for next time.
She's listening, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah. Oh, from a pensions perspective, I was talking about the employer's responsibilities and so forth. There's some key things I wanted to raise from the employee perspective. So once you get enrolled in a pension plan through your employer, you become a member of the plan. And as such, you are entitled as a member to receive a statement twice per year from your pension plan administrator. one of the key things you can do is also make sure your pension plan administrator has valid contact information for you, because the law does establish that they no longer have to issue that in a paper document. Going back to sustainability, the law allows for it to be issued to you electronically, but you have to consent expressly for you to get it that way. So that way, one of the key problems that exists is a lot of people use their employer's mailing address, and of course, that's not necessarily reliable at times, but your email address is usually unique to you.
Right.
You don't usually share your email address with someone else.
Nobody's stealing your email.
Right, exactly. So that way, you then have, that once you provide it to the administrator and you consent to get the information that way, then you're assured that it will be sent that way. So that's particularly important. The other thing is that as a member, you're also entitled to attend your pension plan's annual general meeting. This is an excellent opportunity for you as a member to go, and if you feel uncomfortable, a group of people go. All the employers enrolled in the plan, take several other employees with you, and then you can get educated on your pension plan itself and ask any questions you may have. That is a direct contact with the people who are responsible for everything to do with the pension plan. So I just wanted to bring those things in because a lot of people either don't realize or they don't take advantage of the opportunity. Okay. And it is there.
I think great points to make. Thank you. I know we have one call to take, so this is our last call. Okay. And then we're going to wrap up our segment with a DLP. So good morning. Thank you for calling the Buzz.
Hi, good morning. Chris, I have a question for I think this would fall on Amy. If someone makes a complaint regarding an employer, not making a pension contribution, to your department, what is the procedures that one should follow as an investigator of that particular complaint?
Well, once the person comes into the office and files the complaint, they speak to the investigator at that time. Then the investigator will gather the information that the employee is seeking to share. We usually confer with our administrators in order to see if there's any information they have in relation to the matter, and then the investigator would reach out to the employer in order to gather their side of the perspective. We normally do it. We very commonly do it in writing. I must say, it's not a phone call. So we will send correspondence to the employer in order to identify that we've conducted an investigation. Here's what we found. To determine if the person is pensionable or not, if they were your employee, et cetera. So we gather information in order to resolve the matter.
And so one would automatically assume that would be done early doors, not 5 years after the complaint is made. And I say that in respect of a case that I had, that it was all because of the guys was paid pension all the way up until the closing of the site, and two of them remain on site for an extra 2 months, and it was completely overlooked about paying pension for them. And the case, the amount owed was like about $248 per person. Yet your investigator, Mr. Amrita James, allowed it to 5 years after, and the case was taken to court. I was never ever consulted, and then to add insult to injury,
sir, I think we're giving a little too much personal data here and information, and we're not allowed to specifically speak about cases like that. So I had to ask, and so I have to kind of cut this part of the call down because we can't be calling out names and giving specific details of cases.
The case is finished.
I understand, but it's still.
What I'm simply asking is, why is it that if that is the case that persons are contacted, why are investigators not getting to people prior to 5 years at the end of almost to the end of the statute of limitations, and then after the matter is before the court, some 6.5 years after, persons are being contacted who worked prior, and asked to give a statement on a Sunday morning, and the person goes and gives a statement and says, listen, I got my money from the pension withdrawal. So I don't know what you're asking me this question for.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, what I will say is that under the Pensions Act, a member has a right to an employee has a right to file a complaint, and we have a time limit for investigation of 5 years. So I don't know if in your particular case, the time frame that not just when it was received by our office, but when it actually occurred. So going back to Ms. Madennys' point about people making complaints in a more timely manner, I'm not going to speak to any specific case, but from a general perspective, we have a significant period of time to investigate a case. So it may be that there was a difference in when it was filed with us versus when it actually happened. But it just goes to show how important it is for complaints to come in a timely manner.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, caller, for your contribution, for listening. Thank you, ladies, for joining us on The Buzz this morning. And I'm sure there's lots of questions and comments that will come in and throughout. And I encourage people to contact the Department of Labor and Pensions, especially if you have a case of your own, a complaint of your own, a tip that you want to leave. Get in touch with them. All right.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking forward to having you back. Yeah. And you too, Loval. I know that you're listening to us. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break right now, and then I'm going to wrap up the show speaking about some of the highlights that the Premier and DG, or acting governor right now, spoke about on For the Record yesterday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tired of burning cash at the gas pump and wasting time in traffic? Say goodbye to gridlock and hello to freedom with a Kimco scooter from Automotive Art. Trusted in over 100 countries, Kimco is now known worldwide for reliable, fuel-efficient scooters built to last. Perfect for Cayman's roads. With 2 models to choose from, the Agility 125cc for just $23.99 and the Agility RS Naked 125cc for $24.99. It's the smart, budget-friendly way to beat traffic and cut costs. Visit Automotive Art today and ride smarter with Kimco, because saving money should never mean slowing down.
Cayman job seekers, are you still searching for the right opportunity? To ensure that your application is received and considered during your job search, we encourage you to apply for that role on the Work Jobs portal, even if you applied for the job advertised on the company's website. Increase your chance of putting your best foot forward. Double up to stay on top. Don't wait. Hit that apply button today. Visit WORC.KY to search for available jobs.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
The Buzz with your host, Kathy Miller.
Good morning. This is still your host, Kathy Miller, with The Buzz. What a great conversation that was with the ladies from the Department of Labor and Pensions, and some interesting comments, and a last interesting call that we got there for sure. So always good to have them on, and I appreciate them taking the time to be able to answer people's questions as well. I know it can get a little hard to frame a question that might require you to give some personal information about a case or some data that we really shouldn't be revealing too much out there. So please bear with me when I have to say, hey guys, sorry, but we're not allowed to ask these questions when it pertains to a particular case or give out names, even if something's been dealt with already. we just like to be very careful. We have to be cognizant of that, of other people's reputation out there and whatnot. You know, we got to be careful. So I had mentioned that I was going to briefly discuss the Premier and the acting governor, otherwise we all know him as the DG, their appearance on For the Record yesterday. So in case you missed that interview, I'm going to be speaking about some of the highlights of that conversation. So we only have about 8 minutes left in the show anyways. So if you do want to call and contribute your thoughts, if you did hear the conversation yesterday and you want to make a comment about it, do give me a call, 1-800-534-8255, 949-6990, 949-8037, or you can WhatsApp call or text me at 925-3261. So now, on For the Record yesterday, which you can always go back to our YouTube channel, just search Radio Cayman, and it'll be one of the latest videos that have been put up because it was just yesterday. You can listen to the interview there. I believe the Premier might have come on around 8:15, just after the 8 a.m. news. So anyways, the Premier and the Deputy Governor, who currently is the acting governor, they spoke about the 100 Days Report. So the Premier, Honourable Andre Ebanks, and Acting Governor, the Honourable Frans Manderson, came in yesterday to speak about the 100 Days Report, and the DG also spoke a little bit about his retirement. So it was a highlight on how the elected arm and the unelected arm, the civil servants, worked together to achieve the things they did within these first 100 days. The DG, who is currently the acting governor, as I mentioned, briefly touched on his retirement. I thought there was going to be a little bit more discussion there, but most of us were part of the town hall, and we've seen the statements, heard the statements, seen the videos of the DG explaining his retirement, which I told him last week I was not accepting it until he had he shared with me a little bit longer. Okay, Kathy, this is why I'm going to retire. And I was like, okay, all right, Mr. Manderson, I accept this, and wishing you all the best in that next era of your life. Going back to that interview, to recap on some of the points made. And again, I welcome your calls if you want to give any in these next few minutes. But some of the important points that were noted, the Premier did note that the first cabinet meeting of the term was held in the BRAC last week, so Friday, followed by the 100 Days event held in the BRAC last Friday. He also spoke on the importance of the National Coalitions for Caymanians, the NCFC, starting out early, fast, and unified around the priorities. I agree with that because I believe momentum is everything, and one little action begets another little action, and so forth. He had said that within his first 100 days, he personally identified 3 things that have stood out to him so far, which is being unified, leadership, and determination. Those are the 3 things that have stood out to him within these first 100 days of being able to accomplish what the government has accomplished so far. He mentioned that when the new government was formed, the civil service had already gone through all the manifestos between the different political parties. They found similar points and narrowed down what immediate changes can be implemented for some quick wins. And this is important because this is exactly how the NCFC government came out. And some of those quick wins the Premier touched on are the key areas of which they are drafting instruction for, such as immigration, marine protection, term limits for non-Caymanian civil servants. And he also spoke about the right of the newly elected members of government, the night that the newly elected members of government had a dinner, what they discussed, what they prayed about, and how they decided they were going to form the majority, now known as the NCFC, the National Coalition for Caymanians. So that story was brought up again. I know we've heard it a couple times, but we did reiterate that. And it was brought up because Dr. McField had mentioned he had never seen or experienced a government in the Cayman Islands that was as cohesive as this one is. And so how did this all come together? So the Premier did speak about the night the NCFC did form. Going back to the 100 days, the other things that the Premier noted were, for me, a big one is property ownership. And he spoke about better utilizing tools offered by the National Development Bank and reworking the government guarantee home assistance mortgage program, also known as the GG-HAM program. That is a promise that was made during the election season. That is something that has been repeated after the NCFC government was formed. And again, it's been said about the reworking of the GG-HAM program and better utilizing the tools offered by the National Development Bank to make home ownership for Caymanians a better reality. On the financial services side, in regards to compliancy with the FATF, the Premier has suggested that the government puts all the units that prepare for the FATF assessment into one office. He has proposed creating one office with all the agencies that deal with illicit finance. And he said because of them coming off the grey list the previous year, it was due to all of these agencies getting rid of some of the red tape and very much determined to work hard together to prepare the reports that they needed to, the assessments, not in silos, but unified, and it got done. And he sees that approach working again within the government for all the agencies that need to prepare for the FATF assessments, that they now all be in one office working together. So we'll see if that change really happens. There was he noted the amendment to the Virtual Assets Service Providers Act, and that clarifies legislation on registering tokenized funds, which registering of tokenized funds can now happen on the blockchain. So he clarified the legislation there, and he went on to say that government will further explore the virtual asset space, noting that the Trump administration has opened doors to these investment tools, which may have an impact on Cayman's financial services market, and let's get a jump on that before other jurisdictions do. He also noted the changes needed to the Trade and Business License and the Local Company Control Act and suggested longer-term licenses or multi-year licenses, and has also suggested to give long-term existing companies, local companies, a red carpet treatment. What that might involve, we don't know. He also touched on the Liquor Licensing and Music Dancing Acts and revisions or amendments to those acts being proposed. And back on the cost of living tip, one of the ideas the Premier is working on is putting together a pricing committee to look at all the duties and how we can make things cheaper for people and encourage healthier living. This may mean that it could perhaps lead to higher duties on unhealthy food imports and lower duties for healthy food imports. But we'll see what happens once the pricing committee is put together. There's also going to be an AI steering committee. More on that a little bit later. I know I'm going to be finding more about that in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully I'll be able to give you some information there. And again, during the cost of living, there was some talk centered around what was described as Minister Rolson-Anglin, quote, marshalling an energy policy. Admittedly, I'm a little bit confused here because we do have a national energy policy implemented in 2017, and as part of the policy life cycle, a mandatory 5-year review is to be conducted, and in 2024, so in 2022, a review was conducted, and in 2024, the government approved a revised national energy policy covering 2024 to 2045. So I'm a little confused exactly the excitement behind what the Premier described as Minister Anglin marshalling an energy policy. Hopefully we'll get some clarification on that. Going forward, there needs to be a little bit of a focus, the Premier said. Not a little bit, but a pretty big bit of focus on the 2026-2027 budget. And he hinted at some things being cut and some collaborations needing to happen. He specifically emphasized collaborations between Minister J. Ebanks and Minister Catherine Ebanks-Wilkes. Going to the DG side, I know I'm going a couple minutes over the show here, but I just want to give you some of the points made in this conversation. The DG said that part of the civil services success in being able to execute on the quick wins within this 100 days report, it was not having to do major ministerial shifts and staff changes. So you know how when a new government is formed, new ministries will pop up or a renaming of ministries. They didn't really have to do that this time around. Some ministries were made more efficient and personnel more or less was already in place or could be quickly identified. So there was no major staff changes when it came to chief officers, etc. He also attributed the civil service's success in supporting the elected arm of government to keeping an eye on elections and also the consolidation of the manifesto priorities, as the Premier had noted. So they were able to identify key priorities for Caymanians that were issued in various manifestos, in essence, anticipating what the government may need and saying, this is what we can do right away. That is part of what made the government transition pretty smooth and the achievements within the first 100 days notable. Two of the things the DG is proud about in the first 100 days is the formal succession planning policy for the civil service, and the second thing was drafting instructions to reform disciplinary regulations and, quote, ensure accountability is alive and well in the service. So those were the major points that were discussed in yesterday's interview on For the Record with the Premier and currently the acting governor, otherwise we all know him as the DG. So I think it's important for everybody to tune into that interview. Again, you can go to our YouTube channel, just search Radio Cayman. It's one of the last interviews that we've posted. You'll be able to listen to it there. It was a pretty nice discussion. There was a lot of kind things also said, just great memories shared. And, we love to hear a little bit of that, spread the kindness, because too often we're complaining about things and we don't want to live in the complaints. We want to live in the kindness. So thank you to everybody out there listening to me this morning, listening to our guests from the Department of Labor and Pensions, going over the recap of when the Premier and Deputy Governor, currently acting governor, were with us yesterday at Radio Cayman. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. I know it's a bit of a slow week for some, a bit of a rushing week for others, but it's really the last week of summer, officially. August is coming to an end this weekend, all right? And then we're into the holiday season, the gala season, the conference season. So enjoy this last week of summer, and I'll be back with you on Thursday.
The Buzz is proudly sponsored by Cayman Insurance Center, specializing in property, life, and other lines of insurance products and services. And Kirk Market. Experience a world of choice. And Automotive Art Cayman.